Hello friends, today in English lessons I am going to introduce you to a very interesting trilogy that I read recently. Uh, why I want you to know about these books, especially the young students of literature, is because the, oftentimes when we study topics like modernism and postmodernism in Western literature, uh, there is this mention uh, about a sense of meaningless, a sense of aimlessness, of even when you talk about concepts like existentialism, absurdism. Uh, I have often felt that as an Indian living in this country, which has a very strong spiritual foundation, it is often difficult for us to understand these ideas of meaningless, because we live in a society which has a very firm grounding in religion and religious faith. So we are trained and taught to believe that there is this all-powerful God, and that He is there to take care of us in all eventualities, and that and again we have all these ideas about karma and destiny, and that whatever we do is a result of our previous births, and in Hindu kind of thought, all these ideas occur. And so we generally are more robust in our optimism. I mean, this is what I have felt personally. And so when we try to understand the Western theories, as I mentioned, of all these isms, sometimes it baffles me. It used to baffle me. Even now I am not very clear about the underlying principles of those theories. But then what I have understood is that to fully assimilate the changes that occurred in modern and postmodern literature, you need to know about many significant events in the world. And the most significant event is undoubtedly the World War. World War I had its impact, but then World War II had a double impact, I would say, a far-reaching impact, that kind of it was a trauma for Europe and even America. The Second World War, and Europe of course had to go through the First World War. So this was a very traumatic experience that changed the outlook of the people towards life. And it is no wonder that the thinking minds began to be disillusioned, and they lost faith in life, because that was the kind of experience that the two world wars gave them. And to understand what they felt, we too have to experience the same thing. But since it's all past and we definitely don't want another world war, we can of course gain a vicarious kind of an experience through books and movies, and of course documentaries. And I, being a person who's fond of books, my first choice would be reading books to get knowledge about such things. And oftentimes I have felt that I have gained more information, more insight into events like the World War, or maybe the Indo-Pak partition, from mainstream bestseller novels. Now, the books that I have here with me, these are the two books which is a part of the trilogy, the Century Trilogy, written by Ken Follett. Now, Ken Follett, the British author, is definitely a writer of bestseller novels, and this trilogy, the first one is missing here because I have already finished it and returned to the library. The first one was titled Fall of Giants. The second one is Winter of the World, and the third, Edge of Eternity. So these three books have to be read one after the other for you to get this wholesome experience. And this trilogy gives you a lot of information about the World War One and World War Two. So in book one, titled Fall of Giants, you have the beginnings of this World War One and kind of the reasons that led to the World War, and the story is woven through the lives of many families mentioned here. We have in the first one too, we have in America, you have the Devar family, and then you have the Peshkov family there, and the Roosrock family, and it goes like that. And then in England you have the Fitzherberts, the Leckwith Williams family, and in Germany you have the von Ulrich family. So through these families the story unfolds, and the characters in these books, they become active participants in all the events of the war. The men in the novel, they go for the war, and they live through the war. They live to see the heartrending experiences of the World War. And what is interesting about these novels is that real life characters are also brought into the narrative. You have people like Hitler, you have Churchill. Later on in the later books, the third book for instance, The Edge of Eternity, you have President Kennedy, his brother Robert Kennedy, and all these people, they also become characters. Of course, I should mention Martin Luther King. All of them, they interact with the characters in the novel. And when I, out of curiosity, checked with certain facts mentioned in the book, I found that they are all true facts. So a lot of research has gone into these books. Painstaking research for years must have gone into the making of these books. And so such books reveal a lot to you. Maybe quite emotional, but then you get a kind of a vicarious experience of the war, and you understand why the war, both the world wars, had such a deep and a scarring impact on the European psyche and the American psyche, and of what exactly happened to them during the war, of how they lost millions of youngsters, of how so many families were shattered, what were the political undercurrents that caused all these wars. So many things you understand. And by the time you come to the last book, the wars are almost done, and you go into the Cold War between America and Russia, and the intricacies, the political intricacies that eventually kind of snowballed into all these disastrous events, all that you get from these novels. So to students of literature, to students of history, this trilogy is one that I would suggest that you read, because of course you might dismiss it as a bestseller, but this is a set of books which gives you a lot of insight into the defining events of the century. So please try to read the books. Okay, let me just show you the book. As I told you, the first part called Fall of Giants is missing now because I have already returned it to the library. So this is part 2, titled Winter of the World, and part 3, book 3 of the Century Trilogy is titled Edge of Eternity. And this, believe me, these books are very interesting, and so the sheer size of the books excite you. The first one was not as thick as this. So when I read the book, I wanted to read the second one immediately, and when I went to the library and got hold of the book, the first thing that made me happy was that the second book is thicker than the first one. And then came the third one, and by the time I was kind of hooked to this, and by the time the third one came, to my great joy, I found that it is the thickest one of all. And I sometimes don't like finishing exciting books, I just don't want the books to come to an end. So what I do is, towards the end, I keep postponing the reading. I am excited, I want to know what happens, but at the same time I get worried about the books kind of just getting over, and so after much delay, intended, purposeful, deliberate delay, finally I have completed the book. And I should say it is a highly enriching experience, and I want more of you to experience it. So please find the books and start reading them right now.